All right, so we're back for another deep dive. This time, we're headed to Minnesota. Virtually, of course.
Sounds fun.
We're checking out Buffalo River State Park. And look like we've got a pretty interesting mix here. Prairie, forest, river.
Yeah, it's almost like 3 parks in one.
Exactly. And to get a good feel for it, we've got a whole bunch of sources lined up.
Always love a good stack of sources.
Yeah, we've got YouTube videos, the park's website, Wikipedia, even some hiking medallion sites.
Hiking medallions.
Apparently, they're a thing. And we'll definitely get to that later. But for now, let's just dive in, shall we? I mean, we even have some history to uncover. From ancient glacial lakes all the way to, well, this is a bit spooky, a recent bear sighting.
Oh, wow. A bear sighting. That's interesting.
Yeah, one of the YouTube videos mentioned it. It definitely caught my attention. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. Where exactly is this park?
So Buffalo River State Park is in Clay County, Minnesota.
Okay, Clay County.
Yeah, it's just east of Moorhead and really close to Fargo, North Dakota, too.
Oh, so it's kind of right on the border there.
Pretty much, and it's super close to US Route 10.
Oh, so easy to get to.
Yeah, you could even do like a quick day trip if you wanted to.
That's awesome.
Oh.
Okay, so I was looking through the sources, and one of them called Buffalo River State Park a prairie lover's paradise.
Oh, yeah.
What makes it so special for prairie enthusiasts?
Well, this park has one of the largest and best preserved prairie remnants in all of Minnesota.
Remnant.
Yeah, remnant meaning it's like this surviving piece of what used to be a much larger prairie ecosystem.
Oh, I see.
You just don't find many places like this anymore, especially not this close to urban areas.
That's incredible. And the sources mention that there's like this huge variety of plant and animal life in the prairie.
Absolutely. We're talking about over 250 species of wildflowers and grasses. Think vibrant colors, delicate petals, all these grasses swaying in the wind. And it's not just about how it looks either. All those plants support this whole web of life.
Speaking of that web of life, I was reading about some pretty unique birds, like marbled godwits, upland sandpipers, even the greater prairie chicken.
Oh, yeah. Now, those are some special finds.
Not your average backyard birds.
No, not at all. The greater prairie chicken, that one's actually pretty rare. They need these large, undisturbed grasslands to survive.
Yeah.
So places like Buffalo River State Park are super important for their conservation.
That makes sense. And it wasn't just birds that the sources talked about. There were some mammals, too.
Oh, of course. Red foxes, badgers, coyotes, white-tailed deer, they all make their home on the prairie. And if you're really lucky, you might even spot a regal fritillary butterfly. It's this really striking butterfly, orange and black, but it's considered a species of concern.
Because of habitat loss.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the prairie, but I know there's also a river running through the park.
Right, the Buffalo River. And along the banks of the river, you get a completely different kind of ecosystem. It's called the river bottom forest.
Oh.
Yeah, imagine these big, tall trees, elm, ash, cottonwood, oak, basswood, all creating this dense canopy overhead. It's a nice contrast to the open prairie.
I bet. I was actually watching one of the YouTube videos, and somebody was walking along this sandy beach by the river, and the water looked so clear. It made me want to go for a swim. But then I read that the swimming pond has been closed since 2018.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I guess it needs some repairs.
That's too bad. Sounds like it was a nice spot. Hopefully they'll be able to fix it up and reopen it sometime soon.
Fingers crossed. But even without the pond, I'm sure there's still a lot to see and do along the river.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so I'm kind of curious about the history of the park.
Uh-huh.
How did it all begin? The sources mentioned something about a glacial lake.
Yeah, so thousands of years ago, this entire area was actually covered by Glacial Lake Agassiz.
Lake Agassiz.
This lake was huge. I mean, picture a lake so big, it covered parts of Manitoba, Ontario, Saskatchewan, North Dakota, and in Minnesota.
Wow, that's massive.
It really was. And as the glaciers started to melt and retreat, Lake Agassiz slowly drained away. And what it left behind were the unique features that we see in Buffalo River State Park today.
Like what?
Like that flat prairie we were talking about. That's basically the old lake bed. And if you're hiking and you come across these gravel ridges, those are ancient shorelines.
So it's like the landscape is literally a footprint of this giant lake.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing, right? And this is where the human history of the park also starts to come in.
Oh, I see. So before the lake, before all that, were there people living there?
Oh, absolutely. Long before European settlers arrived, there were Native American tribes who called this area home, including the Ojibwe people.
The Ojibwe.
And in fact, the Ojibwe name for the river, PG-Whiz-B, it actually translates to Buffalo River.
Buffalo River, so the name goes way back.
It does. This land has been connected to human stories for centuries.
That's fascinating. One of the sources also mentioned something about the Red River Trails. What were those?
Oh, yeah. So the park actually sits along a leg of the Red River Trails. These were trade routes. They stretched for hundreds of miles.
Wow.
Imagine fur traders, traveling through this landscape, following the same paths that the Ojibwe people had used for generations.
It's amazing to think about those layers of history all in one place.
It really is.
I also read this interesting little tidbit about a manor house that was built in the park back in the late 1800s by a Civil War captain named J.H. Smoyser.
Oh, right. It's a reminder that even in a landscape that feels so vast and wild, there are still these human stories that have played out.
And what happened to the house? Is it still there?
Sadly, no. It burned down in 1959.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah. But the story is still part of the park's history.
That's true. So when did it officially become a park? When did they decide to protect this land?
So Buffalo River State Park was established in 1937. And it was actually thanks in part to the Moorhead Rod and Gun Club. They were really big on preserving this unique landscape.
That's cool. So they were like the early conservationists.
Yeah, you could say that. And it's interesting, the park's development was also influenced by the Works Progress Administration, the WPA.
Oh, from the Great Depression.
Exactly. They actually built many of the early structures in the park, like the bathhouse and the diversion dam, which is a structure they used to control the water flow.
Wow, so even something as devastating as the Great Depression had a hand in creating these lasting spaces. So when it first became a park, was it mainly focused on recreation?
Yeah, it was mostly seen as a place for people to enjoy the outdoors, to escape, But things started to change around the 1960s. People began to recognize just how important the prairie ecosystem was, and that it needed to be protected, not just for recreation, but for its own sake.
So the park's purpose kind of shifted from a place for us to enjoy to a place that we need to protect.
Right, and that shift, it really reflects a growing awareness of how connected humans are to the natural world. We're starting to understand that by preserving these natural spaces, we're not just protecting biodiversity, but we're also safeguarding our own well-being.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful realization.
It is.
So for someone visiting Buffalo River State Park today, what kind of things can they expect to do there?
Well,
it seems like there's something for just about everyone. If you like hiking, there are 12 miles of trails.
wow, 12 miles. That's a lot of trails to explore.
Right. And some of them are even groomed for cross-country skiing in the winter.
Oh, that's cool. So you can enjoy the park year-round.
Yeah, exactly. And those trails sound like a great way to really immerse yourself in all those different environments we were talking about.
You could wander through the tallgrass prairie or explore that cool, shady river bottom forest.
And even hike along those ancient gravel ridges.
Yeah, it's like stepping back in time.
Now, for those who maybe prefer a more relaxed pace, there are also plenty of picnic areas.
With stunning river views, too.
Sounds like the perfect spot to just kick back and enjoy the scenery.
It really does. And if you're into fishing, the Buffalo River has some pretty good fishing spots.
Oh, yeah. What kind of fish can you catch?
Well, you can find northern pike, walleye.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular spot for anglers.
I bet. I also read that the park is great for bird watching. They've recorded over 200 species of birds there.
It's a birdwatcher's paradise. You've got everything from soaring raptors to all sorts of colorful songbirds.
And for folks who want to spend more than just a day at the park, there's a campground with electric and non-electric sites and even a group camp.
Camping under the stars in a place like that sounds amazing.
I know, right? I can just imagine waking up to the sound of birdsong and that fresh morning air.
And at night, far away from all the city lights, the stars must be incredible.
Speaking of incredible, remember that bear sighting I mentioned?
Oh, yeah. That was a little spooky.
One of the YouTube videos actually showed a sign warning visitors about bears.
Yikes. It's a good reminder that we're not alone out there in the wilderness.
We're sharing those spaces with all sorts of wildlife.
It's important to be respectful and aware of our surroundings.
Definitely. Follow the park guidelines and, just be smart about it.
We want to enjoy the park's beauty without messing things up.
Exactly. So, as we've been talking about Buffalo River State Park, it's really struck me how much this one place represents.
What do you mean?
Well, we've talked about ancient glaciers, Native American history, the impact of European settlement, and even how our understanding of our relationship with nature has changed over time.
Yeah, it's all there in one park.
It's like this little microcosm of human history and ecological change.
It really is, and it highlights how interconnected everything is.
Like the landscape we see today is the result of thousands of years of natural processes and human interaction.
It's pretty humbling when you think about it.
It is, and it makes you realize that we're not just visitors passing through, but part of something much bigger.
A story that's still unfolding.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. I had no idea this park even existed, and it's so close to Moorhead.
I know. And to think, we've only just scratched the surface.
There's always more to discover.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, right?
They make you want to learn more, to explore further.
And maybe even plan a visit.
Exactly. So, for anyone listening who wants to dig a little deeper into Buffalo River State Park, we've put together a list of additional resources. You can find links to the park's website, some videos, and even a site where you can get those hiking medallions we talked about.
Those medallions are a fun way to remember your visit.
Yeah, like a little souvenir. Speaking of memories, I have a feeling this deep dive is going to stay with me for a while.
Me too.
It's not every day you get to explore a place that's both a prairie paradise, A&E, a testament to the power of nature and history.
It's a special place.
It really is. And it makes you think, sometimes the most rewarding journeys are the ones closest to home.
You know, that's a great point. You don't always have to travel far to find something amazing.
So true. And who knows, maybe this conversation will inspire some of our listeners to plan their own trip to Buffalo River State Park.
I hope so, because experiencing this park firsthand is truly something special.
It seems like a place where you can really connect with the past, but also glimpse the future of our relationship with the natural world.
And just be present in the moment.
Surrounded by all that beauty and serenity.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling kind of inspired to grab my hiking boots and head out there myself.
Me too. Maybe we should plan a trip together.
I'm in. And maybe I'll even pick up one of those hiking medallions.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Buffalo River State Park.
Yeah, I think we've covered just about everything.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have.
It's been a real pleasure exploring it with you.
And to all our listeners, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.
Wonder indeed.
You know, as we're wrapping up here, I keep thinking about what you said earlier, about Buffalo River State Park being like a microcosm of human history and ecological change.
It really is fascinating to think about all the transformation that's happened in this one spot. From those massive glaciers retreating to the first humans arriving and the fur trade era, and then the whole development of the park itself. It really is like a living timeline, like you said.
And it's not just about the past. It's also about how our understanding of our place in nature has evolved.
Exactly. Thinking back to how the park was first viewed mostly as a place for recreation, and then realizing the need to preserve the prairie. That shift says a lot about how we have come to view our relationship with the environment.
It makes you realize that the story of Buffalo River State Park isn't over yet. We're still writing it.
That's true. With every decision we make about managing and protecting these resources.
Exactly. And we have this responsibility to make sure that future generations can enjoy it too.
Yeah.
This park, with all its amazing biodiversity and all its history, we need to make sure that stays intact for them.
Absolutely.
I feel like this deep dive has changed how I think about visiting parks. It's not just about the hiking and the picnics. It's about connecting with a place that has centuries of stories and ecological importance woven into it.
It is. And it's about understanding that we're not just visiting. We're part of a much bigger picture, a bigger web of life.
And that even small actions can have big consequences for that web, for that balance.
It all makes a difference.
So to everyone listening, we really encourage you to get out there and find those special places near or far.
Whether it's Buffalo River State Park or somewhere else entirely.
Explore the trails, learn about the history, and most importantly, think about your role as a caretaker of those natural treasures.
And remember that any time spent in nature, it's a chance for discovery and reflection.
And for a deeper understanding of how everything's connected.
Beautifully said.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Buffalo River State Park. We hope you've enjoyed this journey with us.
It's been a pleasure exploring this place with you.
And to all our listeners, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that sense of wonder alive.
Wonder indeed.